All right, before we get this episode started, after you watch this, if you enjoy it, please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and my channel. A big thank you to you for that. Now, here's this week's episode. Hi everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our flashback. Now, this video brings to a successful conclusion the 2004 flashback spring turkey season. Now, I want to get this video started and get on with the hunt, but first, let me remind you that this video was being done in my early days of video documentation. And for sure, my usage of using the correct timing of taking videos was certainly in its infancy. Plus, at the time, I was using an old VHS-C tape video camera. So obviously, the sound and the video quality is not up to today's digital standards. Now, I still think that between part 1 and part 2, this spring turkey season still makes a memorable video. So let's get started here on part 2 and join me as I harvest my very first 20+ pound turkey. First, let's review the Wisconsin DNR's turkey zones back in 2004. Now, as you can see, there were 43 zones for spring turkey hunting, plus another 12 sub-zones within those 43 zones for state park areas and disabled hunter-only areas. Plus, virtually all of northern Wisconsin that was north of Highway 8 was closed to turkey hunting. With Wisconsin introducing a turkey population only a decade or so previous to the 2004 season, these multiple zones would spread out hunting pressure on this new population and allow them to grow in numbers, plus give extra time to the turkeys to spread and thrive in northern Wisconsin because of tougher weather conditions over the winter months. This DNR strategy turned out to be one of the great success stories for the wild turkey. Looking to 2024, the turkey population literally exploded all over the state. The northern portion of the state is now open for turkey hunting also, and the zone sizes have expanded. Currently, there are only 7 zones covering the entire state. And I believe currently that Wisconsin now ranks in the top 5 states for turkey harvests. But getting back to the 2004 flashback, my turkey tag was for Zone 21, which at that time included portions of Waushara, Adams, Wood, Portage, Jackson, and Clark counties, with my Zone 21 scattered over portions of 6 different counties. You can see why in part 1, I took an afternoon to road scout to correlate my researched map for additional public hunting areas, so that I had a plan B just in case. Now, again, with this video documentation in its infancy in 2004, let's open with some excerpts from my turkey journal about my arrival on Wednesday early evening, the 14th of April. I arrived around 6 p.m. I changed my work schedule so I could leave at 2:30 p.m. I wanted to get by Craig's place in time to get everything done by daylight. Now, reading on, as I was coming into Craig's land, I spotted 3 turkeys feeding in the cornfield on the left side of the road. They appeared to be males, either jakes or gobblers. They were a little too far away, but they all had beards. Now, when I pulled in by Craig, the first thing I did was get my boots, grab the decoys and blind materials, which was a camo umbrella and camo front cover, and head to the blind so I could finish it tonight. Now, it took longer than I had planned. I had trouble setting up the umbrella around the tree. I finished up around 7 p.m. Now, I had planned on only taking a half hour and being out of the woods at least an hour to an hour and a half before the turkeys go to roost. I hope my being out there longer and making noise didn't spook the birds from roosting in the area. Reading on April 15, Thursday, opening morning. The alarm went off at 3:45 a.m. That's right, 3:45 a.m. Now, reading on, I changed into my camel clothes and was out the door by 4:30 a.m. The temp was 36 degrees as I left. Turkey hunting opens at 5:42 a.m. today, and it was 5:20 a.m. before I was finally all set up and in the blind.
Well, as you can see, it's 6:34. My opening morning, second day of the first week of the hunt. Absolutely nothing. I got in here, I didn't hear anything on the roost gobbling. No calls at all. No turkey sounds at all. A very dismal start. 2 to 3 weeks ago here scouting the birds. Birds were all over the area in the morning. Today, nothing. So it was either a raccoon or a badger that came through probably about 5:45, about 45 minutes ago. It's a little too dark for me to make out whether it was a raccoon or a badger. It looked like a badger because it was low to the ground, not up and round, kind of, flat like a badger would look. And he came through going from right to left on the screen here. And then about 10 minutes later he came back the same way, going to the right. That's been the only activity that I've seen. I've been calling sporadically, but nothing. Well, hopefully the hunt turns out better than it started. That's it for now.
Now, let's take a look at this ground blind that I finished last night and I am currently sitting in. Now, here's the finished view from the front. Now, I only had to put up the umbrella and front camel, then add in some natural cover for it to blend in. And here's a front view of the blind as it was when I used it during my scouting weekends. And lastly, here are two additional finished views of the blind, one from the left side and one from the right side. As I thought about the lack of turkeys in the area this morning, I could not help but wonder if that badger that I saw earlier this morning could have something to do with it. They are a very vicious animal, prone to attack anything that crosses its path. The continued silence in the turkey woods was stark evidence that, by my theory, the badger may be the culprit of the change in the turkey's movement and roosting patterns in this area. But a short while later, after letting out a few soft yelps and purrs,
We got a response.
I put out a few yelps and purrs and listened. Well, I had finally got a closer yelp response to my calling, except it was behind me in the direction of the farmer's field in a northeast direction. It was below the crest of the ridge that was behind me. It never seemed to be interested, just a few yelps as it passed by, moving on. I never made any visual contact with that turkey.
Now I changed the tone of my calling by using a call I have called the pumper. I wanted a higher pitched yelp just to change up the cadence and sound to sound like a different hen.
Well, it's quiet again. Whatever responded stopped, so I shut this off now.
Hey, while I was putting this video together, I thought it'd be a pretty good idea to actually show you what I was talking about for that call called the pumper. Now, what this is a diaphragm type call that you would normally put in your mouth. And what you do is you hit it to push air. I don't know if you can see that in there. There you go. You can see in there the diaphragm is in there. So when you hit this, it pushes the air over that diaphragm like it would in your mouth if you used a mouth call. Essentially, that's what it is a mouth call there. The other thing that's unique about this is you can adjust this like you would using your tongue on a mouth call for additional pressure and change the volume and tone, or not volume, but you can change the tone. The other thing is, it's nice because it's got a little locking pin here for traveling. The pin locks in and you don't have to worry about it accidentally going off. Another adjustment that you can do besides this is to unscrew this cap, loosen or tighten it for additional pressure. But essentially, this is what you heard on the video and how to operate it. You adjust it where you want. Check it out. Here we go. So I've always had trouble getting consistency using a mouth call, and I ran across this 30 years ago, and I've been using it ever since as a change-up call. So thought I'd show you what the pumper is.
Now that little bit of hen action actually got my hopes up. Maybe a Tom or Jake would follow the hen into this area, and I can still make something happen this morning. Well, as it turned out, this was the only bird on the ground I saw this morning on Craig's land.
Well, as you can see, about all I got out of this morning was a nice morning in the woods. Nice and warm now, sunny. Haven't heard a jake or a gobbler or seen a jake or a gobbler all morning. Nothing on the roost, no gobbling on the roost, no birds had roosted close. So we're gonna pack it in, head back into the trailer, grab a bite to eat, and we're gonna head out to either Rasha Cree or some of that new land that I scouted west of here. This is just quiet. There ain't nothing around here. So we're gonna move on, try something else.
After lunch, I decided on going to Rasha Cree, the state fishing and hunting area. I had hunted there in 2001 and had some good turkey action, but was unable to harvest one at that time.
Now I changed into my lightweight camel clothing as the temps were already into the 60s and climbing. And I downsized my turkey gear in my vest. I'd leave the camera home and I'd replace the camera and the tripod in the back pouch of my turkey vest with some turkey decoys. Now I arrived around 12:10 p.m. My plan was to run and gun. I'd head east and then turn north a little bit and head back to the west, back towards the van, all the time calling and running and gunning. I figured I'd hunt till about 5 p.m. Now, most of the area hadn't changed since I last hunted it in 2001. About the only thing that did change was the weather. As I started heading back to the west, I could see dark rain clouds moving in my direction. And of course, packing light for this mobile short 4-hour hunt, I had no rain gear with me. So I decided to cut across and go directly to the van. After all, so far this outing was a total disappointment. I never saw any birds, nor did I even get a single vocal response. As I arrived back at Craig's trailer, the skies let loose and it started to pour. It ended up raining all through the night. Boy, this first day was really a letdown, especially after the 2 weekends of scouting with all of that turkey action that we had. But I still had 5 days to hunt. As I said before, this being in the early days of my doing video documentation of my outdoor adventures, my ability to look ahead to what I would need in the editing process was still in development. I didn't always get the video I needed in order to be able to edit it into a coherent storyline.
So I apologize. But again, let's start out Friday, April 16th, my second day of the hunt, by reading out of my turkey journal entries. So follow along as best as you can as I set the stage for today's hunt. Up at 3:45 a.m. again. After yesterday's experience, it sure does not seem worth it. The grocery store freezer section is starting to look inviting. The weather for today is rain, and I'm not looking forward to sitting in the rain if the turkeys are as uncooperative as yesterday. Also, I'll leave the video camera behind. I don't want it getting wet. Little did I know, this was going to be my worst decision of the hunt. Now, I was out of the trailer by 4:35 a.m. and already all set up and waiting in the blind at 4:57 a.m. And today hunting opens at 5:40 a.m. So all I got to do now is just settle in and wait. At 5:34 a.m., the day's action began. I had gobbles on the roost off to my right in the direction of my first blind and John's tree stand. They were close, definitely within 100 yards. Maybe today's the day. At 5:40 a.m., I made a few tree yelps and got an instant response back. I had responses from 4 or 5 gobblers off to my right and gobbles from a bird off to my left. I continued to yelp on and off to make sure that all those gobblers knew where I was. And all the gobblers continued to respond by gobbling back at me.
Like I said, not bringing my camera today was a huge mistake. Now the light rain had stopped early in the morning, and by mid-morning the skies had cleared, the sun was out, and temperatures were on the rise. Now join me as I brought my turkey harvest back to the trailer in order to get some video documentation about the hunt and also to get some video and photos of my very first 20+ pound turkey harvest.
Okay. Successful day. After yesterday, I didn't think I was going to have any success at all. The woods were silent. We never even saw a bird. In fact, I ended up going to Rasha Cree and never heard a turkey sound or saw a visual thing, nothing. I was really down yesterday. This morning when I got in the woods, there was a lot of gobbling. Hens had flown down right away. So I knew that the birds, the gobblers were with the hens almost immediately. It was tough to call them off. And there must have been, there had to have been 5, 6 gobblers all around me. And I knew I wouldn't be able to call them off their hen, the group of hens that they were with. So I figured if, I kept trying though. I did have a hen come in, 10 yards, jumped up on the log right next to the decoy, sat there for quite a while, so I got encouraged by that, thinking maybe that that would bring in some toms, because that bird hung around for quite a while and finally moved off. And then this woods kind of went silent. I'd get gobbles every once in a while. I kind of moved around to my other blinds trying to get closer, thinking they'd come in.
to my original spot from where I called, but they never did. Finally, I got back to the blind and kind of thought everything out and thought to myself, you know, if they're with the hens this morning, they heard all this activity in the area I'm at early, and they were responding to me, they just wouldn't come. I figured maybe late morning, I'd get a bird in. And sure enough, that's what happened. Was it about 11:30? We started hearing some gobbles. They started moving my way, and by 11:45, bingo, we had a bird. So it worked out really good. Well, I'm going to weigh this thing now. There we go. "22 pounds. 22 pounds and some odd ounces. It's bouncing around between 12 and 5, but 22 pounds plus. 22-pound bird. Nice. Pose for some pictures. £22. Get that out of the picture. There. See if we can't set this bird up better. Dead. Get that fan out. There, how's that? Finally. Nice beard. Fan out that tail. We got one. Whew. Shotgun across the bird. There we go. Fan out that tail. There we are. Whew. All right. Now I got to get the tape. I want to measure some stuff just to make sure. Okay. Let's check the spurs. Get them up here again. And what do we got for spur length here? 1-inch spurs. Not sharp yet, but a 1-inch spur. Let's check out that beard. We'll call it 9 inches. 9-inch beard, 1-inch spurs, 9-inch beard, 1-inch spurs, 22-pound bird. Look at the way that shines. Pretty bird. The shot was 32 yards. I dropped her clean right there. I pasted off. So, well, I suppose we'll try to get some still shots. I think I'll take the still shots over there, and then we'll get her in and get her registered.
Now, I did bring my photo camera along on the hunt. That one I could keep in a dry spot. So here's a few photos from out in the field just after I tagged the tom.
How's that look? How's that for a shot? A lot better. Again, 22 pounds, 9-inch beard, 1-inch spurs, and a 32-yard shot. Dropped it right on the spot. I want to get some stills taken here, and then I want to get her in, get her registered, and hang to clean the bird. Zoom in. There's the beard, about a 9-inch beard. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Look at that fanning up for the shot. Perfect. All right.
With this being my very first harvest of a 20+ pound bird, I was very excited to score the bird using the National Wildlife Turkey Federation scoring system. Now, this system was put in place to allow various birds that were harvested to be compared together by a point value. And this scoring system takes into account the weight of the bird, the length of the beard, and the length of both spurs. Now, this accounts for the 3 factors that hunters always look at when they're trying to compare birds.
So the scoring system works like this. For weight, the bird's weight is converted into a point value as 1 point for each pound, and ounces are converted into partial points, such as 8 ounces equals 0.5 points. 4 ounces would be 0.25 points. And 12 ounces would be 0.75 points. So in my case, with my turkey weight at 22 pounds 8 ounces, the NWTF score is 22.5 points. Now for beard length, the beard length is determined by measuring the longest strand of hair from the base of the beard where it is connected to the skin to the end of the longest strand. And 1 point is awarded for every inch. And fractions of an inch are converted to decimals for points, such as a ½ inch would be 0.5 points. And 7/8 of an inch would be 0.875 points, etc. Then the total inches are multiplied by 2. So in my case, my 9-inch exact length beard would score by the NWTF rules as an exact 18 points. And finally, spur length is also accounted for. The spur length is measured from the base of the spur where it meets the leg bone to the tip of the spur. And each spur is measured separately as spur lengths can vary between the 2 spurs on a turkey. Again, if the spur length would be 1 inch, it's 1 point. If the spur length is 1.5 inches, it's 1.5 points. If it's 1 3/4 inches, it's 1.75 points. Now these individual spur lengths are then multiplied by 10. So in my case, 1 spur was 1 inches times 10 equals 10 points. The second spur was also 1 inch times 10 equals 10 points. So by the NWTF rules, my total spur point score is 20 points.
This way, by using the NWTF scoring system, you can determine by point value just how good one turkey compares to another. And generally speaking, any NWTF point total that reaches 60 points or higher is considered a trophy bird.
So, my scoring on this bird by NWTF rules is as follows. The weight came in at 22 pounds 8 ounces, which would equal 22.50 points. The beard length came in at 9 inches long exact, times 2 would equal 18.0 points. And each spur did measure 1 inch in length, times 10 would equal 10.0 points for each spur, bringing my total NWTF score to 60.50 points. So not only did I get my first 20-pound plus turkey harvest, I also scored on getting my very first trophy bird by NWTF standards. Now be sure to join us on our next video episode as I head up to the lake cabin to do some plumbing work. But first,
We got one. Got a nice one.
I managed to get in some stream trout fishing.
We got a nice one on. Hope we don't lose it. Fighting pretty good. Get a little closer and see what we got here. Oh, a nice blow.
Hey, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on our next video.
Feel free to comment below, or if you don't want to comment in the public eye, we can also be reached at rapantoutdoors360@gmail.com. Now, if you know somebody you think might enjoy this video series, please feel free to go ahead and share this video or this link with your friend. And as always, whether you fish or hunt, remember, practice CCR. Catch, conserve, replenish. Make sure that that resource is available for future generations. See you next time, guys.